goodness, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the E2B podcast. This is Alicia. And I am so excited because this month we have been celebrating MS Awareness Month. March is MS Awareness Month. And I've had the opportunity to talk to some amazing people that are willing to share their stories as it relates to MS and their journey as they have been thriving, I love to say, with this disease. And I am elated to have Kinyotta Johnson here on the podcast to share her story and also to talk about her book that she has written, just about her journey as well. So thank you so much for being here on the
Well,
podcast.
thank you so much for having me, Alicia. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you and just get to know you and talk about this monster MS. Yeah.
Right? You are so welcome. I'm so happy you're here. And like for most people, when we start out like this, particularly this conversation, I always love asking like when you, or not so much when you were diagnosed, but what were some of the things that you noticed prior to your diagnosis that you then after that diagnosis was like, I think this was MS and I didn't realize it, maybe years or however long after or prior to your actual diagnosis. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I never really thought about it because at the time that I was diagnosed, I just started feeling numbness in my hands. And
Okay.
at that time, I was working full time. I was going to school full time. So, you're typing papers and things like that. So I didn't really
Yeah.
think too much about it
Mm.
until the numbness actually started traveling. I noticed it in my feet. And
Okay.
it was making it more difficult to walk. And I'm like, oh, something's got to be going on. So, that's when I tried to, seek, help going to the ERs, talking to doctors and things like that. But they couldn't tell me anything.
Mm.
And then I was in the ER, and the doctor told me, he's like, well, you're 30. So you may have signs. This could be, multiple sclerosis. And I had never heard of it, didn't know what it was.
Right.
And so by that time, he was like, you need to see a specialist, to, definitively tell you.
Right.
And so, but it took me over 6 months to see that specialist. And by that time,
Wow.
I could barely walk. The
Mm.
numbness had traveled throughout my body. My entire body was numb. I
Wow.
had to quit my job, and then a week later, I ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, and so an MRI actually showed lesions on my brain and spine, and that's what prompted the doctor to have me, go into the hospital. And he's like, "Oh, it's only
Mm.
going to be 3 days, steroid drip," and my 3 days turned into 15 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a series of unfortunate events for me.
Mm.
I had two blood clots form. They
Mm.
traveled to my brain. I had a grand mal seizure. I actually hit my head during the seizure and had a brain bleed as well. And I was in and out
Wow.
of the ICU, and the doctors just didn't know what to do.
Mm.
But the lumbar puncture that they did test positive for MS and not meningitis because they wanted to do
Right.
meningitis as well. So it was a long, grueling diagnosis,
Right.
and it took about 2 months for me to recover because I couldn't see, couldn't walk, and it was just a series of doctors and labs and just learning what to do with physical therapy and
Right.
just managing this and you know just the realization that you have an incurable disease because I didn't know it was incurable at the time.
Right.
We're just doing more research and things like that. It's just a reality you didn't want to be faced with, but you have to accept because
Right.
it's not going away.
Right. Right. No, thank you for sharing that. And once you were like, discharged from the hospital and that whole process, what did that look like? Were you like in physical therapy? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what were the things that led up to you, getting to the point where you are, not gonna say now, but to a point where you're like, okay, I can kind of like now function, a lot better than what I was prior to me, being in the hospital.
Well, so I did start off with physical therapy, occupational therapy.
Hmm.
My long-term residual effects are chronic fatigue, extreme pain, and then my hands have never actually recovered. So they're still numb, and they've been numb
Okay.
for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
Um, and so that, with the physical therapy, they send you home with exercises to do
Right.
along with the occupational therapy as well. And so I had to navigate that, but still, going on about my daily life. And so I had to incorporate movement, exercise.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
realized that that is, with this disease, that is the key
Mm-hmm.
to longevity and,
Yeah.
beating it and its progression, because without movement, you're just stagnant, and then the symptoms get worse.
Right.
So, and it's all about, if you don't use it, you do lose it.
Yeah.
Honestly, with this, and then so just, making regular doctor's appointments. I mean, that was important for me. And, talking about the DMTs,
Right.
the therapies for us and what's best for you. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I had to talk to my neurologist about what was best for me, my primary care doctor. And at that point, you're seeing a primary care doctor, you're also seeing an MS specialist and a neurologist, because those
Neurologist.
are two different things. But they
Right.
are neurologists as well. And then, your eye doctor, because you could get optic neuritis. And
Yep.
so, and then labs. And at that time, my blood count was really, really low. So I had a hematologist as well. And so
Wow.
it was
Okay.
just a lot of doctors' appointments and just poking and prodding every 3 months, every 6 months,
Right.
MRIs every 6 months, because that's how they monitor, my progression. And so just knowing that every day, um, I'm not necessarily in the mindset of I want to do this, but it's more of a, I have to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, there's nobody's going to do it for you,
Yep.
and nobody knows what you're going through, so you have to
Mm-hmm.
actually do it for yourself, and you have to find that motivation.
Right.
Um, and so that's what life looked like, especially early on in the first few years.
Mm-hmm.
But you get tired of being stuck. And,
Yeah.
in the beginning, I was on Rebiff. And so, that was an
Yeah.
interferon injection where you do it 3 times a week. And,
Right.
even the side effects are worse. You get the flu-like symptoms, the body aches, the chills,
Yeah.
headaches. And, I got tired of doing it, because you basically can't live life if you're,
Yeah.
and that exacerbated it, tremendously. But with the MRIs, and you see new lesions, so they have to switch
Right.
the medication. So now I'm on Plegridy,
Right.
which is every 14 days. I'm injected
Okay.
every 14 days. And so it's not as bad. But, over the years, I've learned that with diet, and my diet especially, and then with exercise, I know I need to hydrate the day before my injection, the day of my injection, the day
Right.
after my injection. I have to limit, activity. I may, just yesterday, I went to boot camp. I go to boot camp on Saturday mornings, and then
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, I have like a muddy area on the side of my house. So I'm
Okay.
like, well, I need to put some stepping stones down. So I go, try to shop for that. And, it's kind of hard for me to carry things with my
Mm-hmm.
hands. And so I get the ones that are manageable, the 12 by 12 stepping stones. But I
Mm-hmm.
realized after you place 30 of those outside, and then I woke up this morning like, woo, a ton of bricks hit me. I said, I've used all of my energy, and I should be in the bed all day. And so
Right.
I'm like, well, I'm not going to make it to church today. But,
Right.
I went for a walk just to, because you have to be consistent, even though you don't
Yeah.
want to, just even slow and steady. I
Mm-hmm.
have to do something, and
Right.
so that's my mindset every day. Is just be mindful of the activities I do. I'm
Right.
saving up the energy for something. I live my life through a calendar. So,
Mm-hmm.
if I have something coming up, I know that I need to rest. I might need to take a nap. You know,
Right.
and naps are great. But
Right.
but it's still, I wake up tired every day. As
Right.
that fatigue is just, it's like no
No
other,
joke.
and so you
Yeah.
just don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
that's, it's a learning curve. But I think my first 10 years, um, it was definitely a learning curve for me. And then
Right.
I know what triggers me, what causes relapse, what causes flare ups for me.
Yeah.
And stress is definitely the number one cause for me when
Right.
it comes to flare ups and relapses. So,
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's as you were saying a lot of that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's me. Like the fatigue was something that I struggled with for the longest. And I feel like, and you can let me know how you feel, but because of some of our symptoms, not everybody's, because there's some people who have to use like, canes and stuff and you can see that there's like, oh, physically, I see that there's something going on with you.
hmm
But when you have things like you said, like the numbness in your hands, I have this whole thing on this side of my body at one point this whole hand was numb. It's gotten better, but I have the residual of it is like it feels like there's icy hot in my arm.
Mm-hmm.
So some days it is really, really hot, like somebody just lit a match.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it feels like somebody just thrown a ton of ice inside my body and there's nothing I can do to regulate that temperature.
Right.
But no one sees that.
They
You know what I'm
don't.
saying? And all that to say to you is like when you are sharing these things with people, they're because basically you're saying like a lot of your symptoms too, they're like invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Like do people really like take that in terms of like your actual symptoms? Have you experienced folks kind of like okay,
You know,
she knows I'm
I
sick.
have experienced that, and most recently, I was at a work conference last year,
Hmm.
and I'm a very private person, so
Right,
everybody does they wouldn't know unless I told them, honestly.
right,
But when I left the hospital, I had a walker, and I still have my walker, and
right,
as a reminder for me, I had an eye patch. You
right.
could see those, but at that work conference, I was having issues opening a bottle of water. And so I asked
Yeah,
my coworker to open it for me because my hands were locking up. I was just stressed that day. And so,
right.
but and she knew of my MS diagnosis, and so the other coworker heard us talking. She was kind of overhearing us, and then she was just
Uh,
like, "You have MS." She's like, "But how are you able to walk?" And
excuse you?
I'm right. What do you mean?
Right,
For me, by the grace of God, and I'm
right.
here, and they don't realize that everybody's symptoms are different.
Mm-hmm.
But I am willing to educate those who are willing to listen, because some people just
Yeah,
don't know. So I do extend a little bit of grace to
yeah.
those people who just don't know and are willing to listen. Because after I had a conversation with her, she was like, "Oh, she didn't mean it. It was just."
Right.
It just came out like the people that she's seen or heard of, they're in wheelchairs, they can't walk, they
Yeah.
can't do for themselves, and maybe at one point they were able to do for
Right.
themselves, and a lesion appeared, and boom, you're
Right.
no longer able to walk, you can't feed yourself, you can't drive anymore. So it just depends on the location, because I've met people who've had like 75, 100 lesions, but they're walking around just like you and I.
Right. Right.
And then you have one who has one or two, and they're
Hmm.
incapable of taking care of themselves. So
Right.
it's a fickle disease,
Yes.
and it's weird that we all have different symptoms, but no two people have the same symptoms. We just
Right.
know that we're under this umbrella of multiple sclerosis, and
Right.
unfortunately, this is where we're at. And everybody has to learn what works for them,
Right.
because what works for me may not work for the next person.
Right. And thank you for sharing that part because I think a lot of times, like you said, that person was like, "You're walking." Yes, I'm walking, but that doesn't mean my symptoms that I'm dealing with aren't something that should not be taken seriously.
Right.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because I think that's another thing too. Is like sometimes when you tell folks, or at least I'll say for me, when I've told people I have multiple sclerosis, they're just looking at me and they see me because I'm bubbly and like, "Ah,"
Mhm.
and so when they hear that, they're just like, how? Like, how do you? And I'm explaining to them, I was like, a lot of my things are sensory, my
Mhm.
vision, certain things that, I'm just now getting over an issue with my eye. Like, I was having double vision and, my peripheral's kind of weird, but it's getting better. So it's like, it's these invisible things that unfortunately you don't see, but it's still there. I promise you, it's still
Yeah.
there. You
It's
know?
still there. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So another thing I wanted to just I love not I say I love actually, but just always curious about when it comes to, particularly black women with MS. When you got your diagnosis,
Mhm.
was that something where you felt like, okay, I have never heard of any black person having this disease? Was that a thing, or did you already know people, maybe in your circle, or do you knew black people in general that had it, or was this like a first occurrence that you even heard about it?
This was my first occurrence ever hearing about it,
Yeah.
especially being a black woman. Um,
Right.
with and for the longest time, I did not want to accept the fact that I had a disability, because I'm
Yes.
like,
Same.
I'm looking on job applications and things like that. Do you have a disability, or have you had? And then you see multiple sclerosis listed as one of those, and I'm like, how dare they? Categorize me as having a disability? I'm walking and talking, and it may be slow motion, but I'm still, doing for myself and
Right.
not realizing, Kenyatta, you do have a disability.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I need adaptive equipment just to cook.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that with my diet and everything, meal prep is important.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a whole day to meal prep, and that's energy that I have to reserve. But
Right.
I can't cut an apple or cut a watermelon because I almost sliced my finger half open,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
cutting a watermelon because I can't grip it the way that normal people can. I
Right.
can't take a jar of pickles and open it just like that.
Right.
And so I do need to find those adaptive aids, and it's okay,
Right.
to have that. And a lot of people, I think, are embarrassed, I guess, in
Yep.
a sense. And I had to get over that,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, I want to be able to do it for me. I don't want to have to
Right.
wait for somebody to do it if I can find a way to do it for me. And
Right.
we have limitations, but we're not limited. We
Thank
can
you.
always find a way to
Right.
adapt to our situation and just navigate it a different way and still be able to be successful in it.
Yeah.
So it's funny, um,
It is.
and I have to laugh at it because I'm a district activist leader for the National MS Society,
Oh,
and
cool.
so yeah, and so we just had State Action Day the other week, and I was telling one of the people we were meeting with that the highlight for me for MS is I used to hate getting pedicures,
Mm.
and because I'm very ticklish on my feet and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But with the loss of sensation in my feet, I love a good pedicure now because I can
Right.
tolerate it. I don't have to
Right.
concentrate on not kicking them in their face and touching my
Right.
feet. So I have to look at the highlights of this
Right.
disease instead of harping on the down days because I do have down days, but I'm not around people, those days,
Right.
and I live in it, but I'm not gonna stay there. You know,
Right.
it's I'm gonna stay there for that day or a couple days, and then I'm gonna get out of it.
Right.
Because I don't want to be sitting there. There's too much life to live, and I think a lot of us are just existing and not necessarily living.
Living.
You know,
Yes.
so
Yeah. And it's so funny because I was talking to somebody prior about this. I think sometimes you get stuck in these spaces and then you find community that's kind of like in that same mindset. And so it's like and we were even, and I was saying to the person, it's like, sometimes I get nervous about joining certain groups that are MS centered because I feel like there can be this woe is me type of approach and it's contagious. And
yeah,
it's like, guys, yes, we have this disease, and there are moments where we can be like, this really is not cool. Like, I'm really frustrated with whatever, right? But then it's like, how do we work through that? And so, thank you for shedding light on that because I think, for like I said, what I've said, what I've seen, and which is kind of like caused me to be like shied away from certain groups like that was not having that positivity
mhm,
in certain situations. Obviously, yeah, we got to talk about the things and really work through it. But then, like, how do we get to the other side of it as opposed to constantly coming in just to like complain, complain, complain?
right,
You know?
right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. But I wanted to ask too, because you were saying you have the numbness in your hands.
Mhm,
Do you, and this is just me just randomly asking this because I experienced this.
mhm.
I had numbness for a while, but temperature regulation. Do you have difficulty like determining like, so like for instance for me, I have to use my left hand to determine like if I turn on the shower,
Mhm.
I have to touch the water with my left hand because I can't feel if something's hot or cold in this hand.
Mhm.
Has that ever been an issue for you, like temperature regulation and trying to like like figure
Um,
that out or
well,
no?
since it's both hands,
Uh huh.
it's I have to be cautious, and my doctors have told me to be cautious because I'll keep my hand on something longer than I should,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've accidentally burned myself, and so I
Mm.
don't necessarily use any particular hand when it comes to temperature regulations because it's going to feel the same. But
Uh huh.
if I feel like it's a little hot, I will make it a little cooler just for safety, issues.
Right.
So I might take a cooler shower um, than normal because I used to love the hot, steamy showers.
Yeah.
But for us, like especially for me, I get into a hot steaming shower, I may pass out.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I get into a hot bath, I will literally pass out in that water,
Hmm.
and I'm afraid to do that now because of
Right.
I was out of town, and
Hmm.
wanted to take a bubble bath, and I realized, whoa, I got dizzy,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a cold nature person, like I'm always cold,
Yep.
but my internal body temperature will sometimes overheat, and
Right.
then I'll almost pass out, and I'll have to like
Hmm.
pour cold water, down my back to regulate it really quickly, or sit down and take a beat because
Right.
I just my body just can't regulate itself, that fast, and a lot of people don't understand. They may think I'm drunk or
Right.
things like that, but no, I've literally overheated, and I may not
Hmm.
have done anything, you know,
Right.
to cause that. So I do have to be leery of that. But I haven't had any real issues, other than I learned I can't take a really really hot shower, hot bath.
Yeah.
But I don't mind sitting in a sauna for a few minutes, and it's different,
Really?
yeah. And so
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on the day, because some days
Right.
I can, some days I can't, and
Right.
that's the fear, you know.
Right.
And so I realized, like, hey, when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's time to go ahead and quit this activity. You
Right.
and for us, some days the most activity I'll do is take a shower, and then my energy's
Yeah.
gone for the day. At
Right.
least I got that done.
Right.
So it's funny, and it takes an hour or two sometimes just to recover from that, to really
Exactly.
do the next thing. So I'm very cautious of that, but no, definitely. And see, I'm left-handed, so
So am I.
yeah, yeah. I'm only made a few perfect people. The rest are right-handed. Uh,
I love that.
uh, but yeah, yeah, I haven't really noticed anything like that
Okay.
when it comes to the temperature regulation with
Right.
water and things like that.
And it's interesting that you were talking about the sauna because
Mhm.
and it's like it was heartbreaking for me, but I used to love going to hot yoga.
Mm,
I loved it. And I
I've
was
gone a
going
couple times.
right? Consistently going for
Hmm.
years, even
Hmm.
after my I mean, because I've been diagnosed since 2010.
Okay.
And so the heat was never a thing. And I think once perimenopause hit for me,
Mhm.
I think along with my MS, like those two forces collided, and it's like me going to hot yoga now, I can't do it anymore. And so all that to say is like, have there over the years with your MS, have you experienced where there are certain things like you've now had to adjust that you maybe had you were able to do, you know, a few years ago that now it's like now I now have to alter this, and I didn't think that was an issue with my body, but now here we are, you know?
Yeah, there's been quite a few things, especially with it's the fact that my energy level is just it's null and void, and I have to be
Right.
motivated and like I said, save that. But just even just going for walks in the park. Like I have to,
Mm.
sometimes I wear these leg wraps because I get swelling in my legs, and I have to limit
Uh-huh.
my because I could walk 4 or 5 miles, but now
Yeah.
it's a struggle walking two
Mhm.
or three, and so just being able to do that, or long road trips. I love a long road
Yeah,
trip,
yeah.
but sitting in the car for long periods of time,
Yeah.
it's just I still love to drive, but I can't do it as much anymore. I rather fly,
Mhm. Yeah.
to get there. I used to draw, and
Okay.
I don't anymore because
Mm.
my hands it just takes a lot of it, and then I get tired of the cramping and things like that. So that's
Right.
one of the things I do miss most is being able
Yeah.
to draw. Um, and it's kind of sad. I try to every now and then, but my handwriting, it looks like chicken scratch
Yeah.
most of the time. And so I have
Yeah.
to concentrate on that and, take
Mhm.
my time instead of writing as fast as I used to. But I can still
Right.
do it. It just takes longer, you know.
Right.
But I think the most devastating part is the fact that I'm not able to draw, like I
Yeah.
used to.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
that
Yeah.
it's okay.
Right.
I did it
Right.
for fun, and so I still can. I'll get some adult coloring books or something.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yes.
word searches, and so
Uh-huh.
we manage.
No, listen, I hear you. I hear you. Now, you were telling us, or telling me rather, initially about your book.
Hmm.
Share with us, well, one, the title, and then two, what inspired you to write this book?
Oh,
Um,
well,
yeah.
My book is called Embracing the Monster Within 10 Strategies to Navigating a Chronic Illness Through Strength and Perseverance.
Oh, I love that.
And thank you. And what motivated me to write it is I think for the longest time I've been living in the dark with this
Mm.
disease. And I'm finding that more and more people around me are
Mm-hmm.
dealing with a chronic illness, not necessarily MS or
Right.
just everyday life. And like you said, I try to be bubbly. I'm an optimistic person. I like to
Yeah.
smile. I love the sun and the moon and the stars type of person.
Yes.
That type. I mean, that's me. I stop and look at the birds and I get
Yep.
excited. Flowers and things like that. And being here 15 years later, I realize that attitude is what's gotten me here.
Yeah.
And I honestly want to encourage somebody who may have been in that dark place like I was, when I was first
Yeah.
diagnosed. And so I wanted to share, in this book, just my story and then just how I've managed to live with it, for
Mm-hmm.
the past 14, 15 years and just ways to help navigate just daily life, especially life with other people around,
Yeah.
and I found that even people who don't have a chronic illness got some benefit out of my book and some motivation and some inspiration. And so I just wanted to share my testimony to let them know there is another side to just
Yeah.
life and then just having your whole world turned upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And, just to know that it's not the end. It's not the
Yes.
end until you don't wake up, every
Yes.
day that we wake up, it's another chance to live and
Mm-hmm.
to inspire somebody and to touch someone. And so that's why I really wanted to write this book is because I wanted to share my story, encourage somebody that may just feel like they're alone. And I'm not an expert on everything,
Right.
chronic, but I'm an expert on me and just wanted to share how I've learned to deal with it. And it's a grieving process. It
Yeah.
is the loss of you and
Mm-hmm.
just learning how to cope with the fact that the old me is not coming back,
Yeah.
and I want other people to know that this is our new normal. Whatever the devastation was in your life, whether it be an illness or a loss or a medical diagnosis, you can actually make it out on the other side. It's just going to look different. You know,
Right.
it's going to look different, and we do have a responsibility to ourselves to keep going. If nothing else, we have a responsibility to ourselves to keep going. And so
Right.
that's why I wrote it, and I just want to inspire other people. So, yeah.
I love that. And I think it's so important, like you said, just to let people know, like there. You didn't say it like this, but basically, there's life on the other side of these situations. You know what I'm saying? Because it is overwhelming to say the least when you get that diagnosis.
Mhm.
Because it's just like everything I thought that I was going to do. Because I mean, at that time, right? Because
Right,
it's like
right, yeah.
it's over.
Mhm.
Like it's all. Like,
Just
that's how I was. I was
yeah,
feeling
right.
it's
I'm like
over.
I'm 30 years old. I mean, life is over. You like for real. Like, what am I gonna do?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so here we are.
Right. Exactly. And I will say, like, especially when I got my diagnosis, I had a family member. She was an in-law, but she was diagnosed with MS in the 80s.
Hmm.
And she, at the time that I was diagnosed, she was, wheelchair bound, so relying on her husband and all this. And then I also thought about, Montel Williams, and then I thought
Hmm.
about Richard Pryor, and I was just like, Lord, please,
Okay.
like literally, it was like, please. And even if that would have been my situation, I know that I would have in real time, obviously, at that time, I was like, oh, whatever. But I know eventually I would have found ways if I were wheelchair bound or whatever. Like, I would have made it work.
Mhm.
But in that moment, it's just like everything just came crashing down. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to make it out of this.
Mhm.
All the things I planned, like, what?
Mhm.
So, all that to say, for you to write this book and to give people inspiration and hope, it is just that is beautiful. Because I think, especially like we were talking about initially, like, as a black person, particularly a black woman, you don't see us
Yeah.
as the face of MS, right? And when you are searching for things, a lot of times you find the most extreme stuff, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be my life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, especially with me even doing this, I was like, I just want to get it out that there's different people having different experiences with this disease, and not everybody's situation is going to be the same,
Right.
but there is hope, you know?
Yes, there is hope, and I know it's easier said, for those who have already made it to the other side.
Right.
But when you're currently living in it, like you said, when you're first diagnosed, I'm like, what am I, going to do? But I've always been an optimistic person, and even in the situation where I was in and out of the ICU, never did I
Yeah.
think, oh, it was that because I had the other issues with the seizures, the blood clots, in
Right.
addition to this. And so the doctors didn't know if I was actually going to make it. They may have
Mm.
had to do brain surgery. And, I never thought about it as being, oh, this is the end until I was actually talking to my neurologist, on a follow up appointment. And she was like, Kenyatta, we just didn't know what to do. And she's
Wow.
like, we had to research. We had to do some
Yeah.
research because we didn't know what to do. And she's like, you're a one in a million case.
That's
And
amazing.
she would, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, wow, because in my mind, what do I need to do to get better?
Yeah.
That's what I'm focused on. And just having that hope and just thinking about it, just even with writing the book, it was very therapeutic for me, and it took me, just rereading it. You got tears coming down your eyes because this is your
Oh,
story. You can't
right.
actually believe that this is yours. You're not reading about somebody else. This is actually
Hmm.
your story. This actually happened to you. Um,
Right.
and you've lived a life, and I have. Like I think every day that I wake up is an extra day. That is a bonus day. So you can't take that for granted. I want
Yes.
people to realize that you know we're not here just to exist,
Mm.
and we are here, and we're not here to be alone. Because I was the type where I hated asking for help. Like
Yep.
that is the last thing I ever wanted to do was ask anybody for help. But I realized we're not put here to be by ourselves, and it's
Yeah.
okay to need help. You don't have to have it all the time, but in that that small little moment, that help could make the biggest difference. For
Yeah.
somebody, and I feel like embracing the monster within is something that's going to help somebody. I want to give a hug to those who need it.
Yeah.
Just know that you're not alone,
Yeah.
in that dark place. So, yeah, like I said, but it was a therapy session for me as well, just writing it and reading it over and over and just reliving it because I'm like, wow, that
Yeah.
was so. When you think about it, 15 years, 14
Yeah.
years, it went by so fast, but it didn't. And just
Right.
all the things that I've learned along
Hmm.
the way it's amazing. And the people that
Right.
I thank God for my circle, my community, the people in my life, because without them, I definitely wouldn't have made it. So
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful.
That is a blessing. Seriously.
It is.
This was beautiful, Kenyatta. You like thank you so much for just sharing this and sharing your story by way of your book as well. Like you said, you want to give like the folks that are out there a hug and let them know that like you said, there is hope, there's life on the other side. Like, thank you so much. Seriously.
I thank you
You
for
are a
having me.
blessing.
You've definitely gotten me out of my comfort zone, and
Oh, I
I
love
have
that.
enjoyed speaking with you and um, just having somebody to talk to and relate to,
Yeah.
my situation. You are amazing. I appreciate you,
Oh,
and I think it was meant to be when I came by because I'm like, oh wow, and I'm like,
right.
why not? Just go ahead and tell her. You'll do it. Do the interview.
Yeah.
Who knows? And I was a little scared, at first, but I'm just like,
Right.
no, you have to stop. You actually have. I've learned to do it scared.
Yep.
And so that's where that's the phase of life I'm in. Just do it scared.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
you never know what happens.
And you'll be surprised what will happen on the other end of it.
That's true.
And I think too, it's like I think we can even think of that slogan when we've been diagnosed with MS: "Do it scared." Like you
Mhm.
have to, we have to do something, right? It's
Yes.
we have to try and try. Like sometimes with our medications, is it's going to work? Is that not going to work?
Mhm.
Okay, well try this because I got to do it. I got to figure out what's going to work for me to
Yeah.
to ensure that I'm thriving in this life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, no, this is You are a blessing. Seriously, thank you so
Thank you, and
much.
so are you. Just getting our
Oh,
stories out there in the world, and
yeah.
it's amazing giving us a platform to be able to share, and not
Yeah.
only share, but you actually can relate to,
Yeah.
our stories. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much, Alicia.
Oh, you are so welcome. And y'all, I will share Kenyatta's information in the show notes, links to her book. So I'll let folks know you have two different links. Go ahead and
Yes,
explain. Yeah.
it is actually available on Amazon, and I also have a personal website that is available on for autographed copies as well. And I have Instagram and Facebook, and so yeah, I'm excited to share it. So definitely check it
Awesome.
out.
Oh, this is great. I'll share all the information in the show notes for y'all. This was such a blessing. I'm so glad we met. Like, you
Yes,
have no
I
idea.
am too. Oh my gosh, this is just the highlight of my day so far, and I'm like,
Oh, I
yeah,
love that.
yes.
I love that. Oh my gosh, thank you. And thank y'all for listening to this week's episode of the Eat Me podcast. I will see y'all next week. Thank you. This was
Yeah, thank
amazing.
you. I enjoyed it so much.